Welcome, fellow historians, to a journey beyond the known chronicles of the Imperium. We often speak of Paul Atreides, the rise of the God Emperor, and the scattering. The forgotten lore, decipher the cryptic symbols, and piece together the epic sagas that shaped humanity's destiny among the stars. Subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss our first expedition into the deep past. The spice isn't the only treasure Arrakis holds.
There was a war that humanity won completely and lost forever. 10,000 years before a boy named Paul Atreides walked onto the sand of Arrakis, mankind faced a choice that would define every generation after it. Not a choice between life and death. A choice between freedom and convenience. They chose freedom, and then they spent the next 100 centuries building the very thing they destroyed out of blood instead of metal. In the far future of the Imperium, no screen glows in the dark. No processor hums beneath the floor. No voice answers when a man asks it a question in the night. This is not because the technology was lost. It is because it was forbidden. Somewhere in the war room of a great house, a robed man closes his eyes. His pulse slows. His breathing steadies. And in the silence behind his eyelids, numbers begin to move, vast columns of them, more than any unaided mind should hold. He is not consulting a device. He is the device. They call him a Mentat. And the question this story asks is the same question every civilization eventually has to answer for itself. If you tear down the god of logic because you fear what it might become, what do you do with the empty throne? Mankind's answer was terrifying in its simplicity. The Butlerian Jihad didn't end the age of artificial intelligence. It made every human responsible for becoming one. Long before the spice, before the Freeman, before House Atreides ever set foot on Arrakis, humanity lived inside its own convenience. Thinking machines managed empires, calculated trade routes, governed cities, fought wars. And, in the novel's own telling, some had begun to rule outright, treating human beings as livestock to be managed rather than people to be served. For nearly a century, humanity did not reform its machines. It did not regulate them. It annihilated them. Picture burning data halls lighting up the night sky, the way a temple burns during a heresy. Because that is exactly what this was. Not a war over territory. A holy war over the soul of thought itself. And when it was finally over, the survivors carved a commandment into their deepest law, a rule placed above almost every other. Thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a human mind. Here is the detail most retellings skip past. The Jihad was never really about machines. Machines don't hunger for power. They don't scheme, resent, or dream of thrones. The horror was never the machine. It was what human beings had let themselves become while depending on it. Passive, diminished, willing to hand over judgment itself for comfort. That is the wound beneath the commandment. And wounds like that do not heal. They scar, and scars reshape the body around them. Because a civilization cannot simply stop thinking. The moment the machines were gone, an emptiness opened where calculation and strategy had once lived. Someone would have to fill it. Training began in childhood, before a boy or girl was ever told what they were being made into. A child sits in silence for hours, not memorizing facts, but learning to hold 100 facts in motion at once. The discipline was called Mentat training. It did not create geniuses. Genius already existed, scattered and wasted across the Imperium. It created something colder, a mind built to process like a machine while remaining, underneath, unmistakably human. But the tragedy was never what the Mentats became. It was what everyone else stopped becoming. While one child learned to hold 1,000 variables in his mind, an empire of others learned to stop thinking at all, to simply ask and wait and trust the answer that came back. The Jihad had promised humanity it would never again kneel to a calculating God. It knelt anyway. It just changed the shape of the altar. Watch a Mentat work, and the change is almost physical. The eyes lose focus. The gaze turns inward, distant, as if the room itself has stopped existing. He is walking the corridors of pure probability that no one else present can see. Then, A moment later, he speaks. Not an opinion, a verdict. Here is where the story is usually told wrong. Most retellings treat the Mentat as a clever bit of world building, a human computer, nothing more. Sit with it a moment longer, and something darker surfaces. A computer does not fear being wrong. A computer does not know what it means to fail a lord who trusts it with his life. A Mentat does. Thufir Hawat carried that fear for 30 years in service to House Atreides. A mind sharpened into a weapon of pure reasoning. Duke Leto trusted him with strategy, with secrets, with the safety of his own son. Paul grew up watching that trance settle over the old warrior's face and learned, without being told, that some burdens are carried behind closed eyes. A machine cannot be broken by grief. Hawat could, and when House Atreides fell on Arrakis, it was not his calculation that failed him. It was the very humanity the Jihad had tried to preserve. His loyalty, his blind spots, his love for a family that trusted him too completely. Captured, poisoned, turned by his enemies against the boy he'd sworn to protect. Hawat became living proof of the flaw no one had accounted for. You cannot weaponize a human mind without also weaponizing everything that makes it human. Compare him to Piter Dov Reese, the Baron Harkonnen's Mentat, trained in the same discipline, wielding the same gift, but hollowed out into something closer to what the Jihad had actually feared. Where Hawat's humanity was his weakness, Piter's was already gone. He calculated cruelty the way Hawat calculated defense. Same training, same trance, opposite souls. That is the first hidden truth. The Imperium didn't replace an unfeeling machine with a safer alternative. It replaced one danger with a mirror and left the choice of what looked back entirely up to the man staring into it. And once you see that pattern, you see it everywhere in the Imperium. The Bene Gesserit didn't build a machine to predict the future of bloodlines. They became the machine, breeding themselves generation after generation like a calculation stretched across centuries, each daughter a data point in a program too vast for any single sister to see completed. The Spacing Guild didn't build an artificial mind to fold space. They consumed a substance that transformed certain men into living instruments of foresight, bodies changed beyond recognition, kept suspended in tanks of orange gas, more mechanism now than man. Every institution in this Imperium is telling the same buried story. Humanity swore, in fire and blood, that it would never again build a god out of metal. So it built gods out of itself instead. That is the biggest reveal hiding beneath 10,000 years of Imperial history. The commandment against thinking machines was never truly obeyed. It was translated into flesh, into breeding programs, into spice-altered bodies, into children trained since infancy to carry what circuits once carried. Freedom in this Imperium was never freedom from calculation. It was simply the freedom to stop admitting that calculation still ruled them. So we return to the question the Hook first raised. Did tearing down the throne of artificial intelligence actually make humanity free? Ask it plainly. What did the Butlerian Jihad actually destroy? Not thought, not power, not the hunger for certainty. It destroyed only the container in which those things have been kept. Picture the empty throne room after the last machine burns. Silent, golden light falling through dust across a floor no one has swept. That silence didn't last. It couldn't. The hunger that built the machines in the first place simply went looking for new material to wear. It found monks who count probabilities behind closed eyes. It found women who breed destiny into their own daughters. It found navigators who trade their humanity, one flooded lung at a time, for the gift of seeing through folded space. There's a lesson buried in that migration, and it isn't really about Dune at all. It's about every civilization, including the one watching this now, that has ever tried to legislate away a danger instead of confronting the appetite that built it. You can outlaw a machine. You cannot outlaw the impulse that built it. Forbid the tool, and the need behind it will simply find a new material to wear. That is the quiet horror of the Mentat. He was never a triumph of human willpower over soulless machinery, the way the Imperium's own mythology likes to tell it. He was a confession, a 10,000-year-old admission, spoken without words, that human beings cannot stop reaching for omniscience. They can only decide what it costs, and who pays the price for carrying it. The price was paid quietly, generation after generation, by children trained from birth to disappear into pure calculation. A Mentat at the height of his trance is barely present as a person at all. He has, in that instant, achieved exactly what the Jihad swore to prevent, a mind subordinated entirely to computation. The only difference is that this time, humanity can look itself in the eye while it happens. It calls it discipline. It calls it loyalty. It calls it an honor bestowed on the gifted few. But look closely, and the old fear is still there, wearing a human face instead of a mechanical one. This is why the Mentat endures as one of the most quietly devastating ideas Frank Herbert ever wrote. Not a clever substitute for a computer, a mirror. It asks every viewer, in every age, the same uncomfortable question. When you fear a power enough to destroy it, are you actually protecting yourself from that power? Or are you simply deciding which of your own people will be sacrificed to wield it instead? Every generation believes it has finally learned the lesson of the machines. And every generation builds a new priesthood to carry the burden it swore never to build again. The Imperium did not defeat the thinking machine. It taught a human being how to become one, and then asked him to live with what that costs. There was a war that humanity won completely and lost forever. They tore down the throne of artificial minds and fire, and swore, in words carved into law, that no machine would ever again wear the likeness of human thought. And then, for 10,000 years, they built exactly that likeness, out of blood, breath, and broken men, and called it victory. Somewhere, even now, in a hall lit by no screen and no processor, a robed figure closes his eyes. His breathing slows, and behind that stillness, an ancient hunger moves once more, the same hunger that built the machines in the first place, wearing, at last, a human face. Subscribe to Third Age Historian. And remember, history never truly disappears. It only waits for those willing to listen.